Today, I'm going to be answering the question that people have been asking for ages. Are 40-inch tall tires too big for stock axles? Now, before we dive into all the nuances of why that's such a loaded question, let me give you a little background on my experience, just so you know that I know a little bit of what I'm talking about. Now, I have personal experience with every type of Jeep that's ever been made, but specifically the Wranglers. I've had tons of the JLs, JKs, TJs, I've had them all, and I've ran bigger size tires than what you probably should on those stock axles. And the Rubicon 392 you see behind me is no exception. You see, I just recently added the Yokohama Geolandar XMTs that I haven't even shown you guys yet on YouTube. These are 40 by 1550s on a 20 by 12 negative 44 offset wheel. You can see right here that XD wheel has done me really well, and a lot of you guys online have really liked it, and a lot of you have hated it. But it got so much attention that I decided we might as well get another set for the Bronco Raptor. As you can see, for those of you that haven't seen on Instagram, the Bronco Raptor has the set that used to be on the Rubicon 392. So on this Rubicon 392, we ran these 38 1550s for about 15,000 miles. And in that 15,000 miles, we beat the absolute heck out of this Jeep, and it is on stock axles, stock gearing, and everything. And these 38 1550s actually weigh more than most of the 40 by 1350s that you're going to see on the market. And most people, usually 90%, are going to be running the 40 by 1350s, not even the 1550s. Aside from this JL, I had another JL in the past. It was just a 3.6 from 2020, but I also ran 38 1550s on it for a little while, then bumped it up to 40 1550, same as this one. And I didn't treat the last one any better than I have this one. We just didn't take the 3.6 out on the drag strip. Now for this one, I can honestly say I've beat it beyond any of its common failure points. So we've taken it through some insane trails. We've done some pretty crazy jumps, and we've done more nasty burnouts than I care to mention. But with all that being said, the stock axles are still holding up great. So now that I've given you a little bit of a background on me, let me explain why asking if 40s are okay on stock axles is such a loaded question. The Rubicon 392 you see behind me has the latest and greatest Dana 44s. So they're the 3rd gen HD Dana 44s. They are wide tracks. So with that being said, they are just a little bit beefier. All of the failure points they noticed in the past, they've either addressed, reinforced, or beefed up. So they are pretty stiff, they're pretty stout, and they take a lot of beating. But you've got to think they started out with Dana 44s a long time ago. So even if we just go back to 2003, I believe, whenever they first came out with the TJ Rubicons, they had Dana 44s as well. But if you pull out the Dana 44s in the Rubicon 392 of today's world and compare those to Dana 44s of the past, they are significantly different. They're even different from the JKs up to the JLs. So they've changed a lot. And then if we step away from the Rubicon for a minute, you got to think they've offered Jeeps with Dana 35s and Dana 30s for forever as well. So just asking that basic question of if 40s are too much for stock axles, that's why it's so loaded. There's a ton of different stock axles, there's a ton of different stock gearing, and there's a ton of different vehicles, different transmissions, different engines that have had that. So are 40s too big for a stock TJ non-Rubicon? Yes, it's going to break everything. It's going to shred it to pieces. Are they too big for a stock JK non-Rubicon? Yes, they're too big. The transmission, first of all, is not going to hold up to it. The gearing is going to be too low because you've only got that 5-speed or you've got a 6-speed manual, and the axles probably are not going to stand up to it. Whenever you step into the JK Rubicons, really 3.6 and above, everybody hates the 3.8, but the 3.6 and above, so that's, I think 2011 or 12 is when they started it. I honestly think that's whenever you're getting to that threshold of if you're doing really, really minor and moderate wheeling, that is really where I think you can get away with, you know, running 40s on stock axles, starting with the JK with the 3.6 in the Rubicons, because they've got 410s, you've got the 4-to-1 transfer case, and those Dana 44s are relatively tough. Now, before we dive too deep, literally, I've got to introduce you guys to today's video sponsor, Max Speeding Rods. Now, Max Speeding Rods offers a ton of different products, from off-road lights like this, to exhaust, to suspension parts. They've got a ton of different stuff, but today, we're going to be testing out and installing their off-road LED lights. Now, with these, they've got a ton of different features, so the easiest way to show you all of these crazy features is going to be to go ahead and install them and see how they perform. Before it gets too dark and we go out there to test them out, something else that's really cool are these lens covers. And that's going to keep your lens clean, or if you're in an area where you need to keep that covered, you can. You can see I've got the switch right here. It's super simple. That is for your normal lights. And then you've got your RGB light right there, and it shows what color it is. So if you're changing colors, it's going to show you what color you've went to. So just to give you a little bit of a comparison here are what my old spotlights look like. Now this is through a tinted windshield here, so keep that in mind. But those are pretty powerful spotlights that go on for a while. And this is what the max speeding rods lights look like. It is an absolute night and day difference. But I've got it in color changing mode now. Super cool. I really like that. And I like how I get the ability to run amber lights when I want, because those amber markers up there really tie in with the rest of everything else down here. But with these lights, they're absolutely insane. This is just with these lights on, and we've got our halos and stuff, but oh my gosh, they are so bright. And unlike the regular spot beam, see how it's really bright right here on the corners? Those edges shoot off a considerable amount of light on the sides here. So you can see the trees here completely lit up, and then everything in front of us as well. A huge thank you to Max Speeding Rods for sending out this awesome product and sponsoring today's video. If you want to support the channel, if you want to check out the stuff they have to offer, please check them out down in the link in the description below. In my JK Rubicon 2014 Rubicon X, I ran 38-1550s for quite a while and didn't have any major issues. I ran it on stock gearing as well. The only issue I had with the axle is that the electronically actuated locker got stuck in the engaged position, and I could not disengage the locker, so we had to replace the entire carrier in the rear. That was pretty annoying, but the actual components of the axle didn't fail. I didn't have any issues with the axle shafts. I didn't have any issues with any of the internal gearing. It was really just the locker, and I really did beat that thing up. Now I ran the Milestar Patagonia MT 38-1550 R20s on that, and those typically aren't as heavy as your traditional set of 40 by 1350s, so maybe they weigh 3 more pounds a piece. But of course 40s do just have a taller rotating tire, so that does lead to a couple other issues, but really and truly the weight is the big part of it. So I think stepping into the JKs with a Rubicon trim level and above, it actually is safe to run 40 stock. Now, I'm not saying that you're still going to be able to use all your gears. You definitely are going to need to look into re-gearing. Even on the 6.4 Hemi that I have behind me, I'm going to be re-gearing pretty soon, just stepping up to these 40s. On the 38-1550s, it was manageable, it was okay, and it was not really annoying. I didn't use 8th gear all that much unless the road was decently flat or a really small incline. But anytime we got to a decent incline, it would drop to 7th or 6th whenever it got steep. Whereas with the 40s, now I'm in 5th gear a lot more than I care to see on the highway. So I think we'll be changing that pretty soon. And I think there's limitations on what gearing you can actually run, even with the Dana 44s. Whenever you're talking about gearing, you've got to think you've got to fit those new gears in that small Dana 44. The actual differential itself is relatively small on a Dana 44, as you can see right there. And the taller gearing you get, the smaller those teeth are going to be for your ring and pinion. For this right now, it is a non-XR 392. I ordered the first one ever, so this is before they had an XR package available. But from the factory, this one came with 373 gears. And honestly, I think 373s in this configuration with the 6.4 and the 8-speed are perfectly fine for up to maybe 37-1350s, and I got away with it for quite a while on those 38-1550s over there. But I would have liked to re-gear. Now, I drive my Jeep on the road a ton because we don't trailer this to the trail. I actually drive this out to the trail, and if it's a nice day or whatever and I feel like driving it, I take it out. I love to drive this thing on the street. So with that in mind, the gearing is going to be pretty crucial on what I decide to go with. You would think it'd be a really simple solution to just go ahead and go with 513s, throw those in there, and you'd be good. You really wouldn't have to worry about chasing for gears or anything like that, especially with the 6.4. With the 3.6 liter, 513s is probably what you'd want to go with. And that's pretty much what I'm familiar with thinking. That's what my thought process goes to. But with the 6.4 liter Hemi, we don't really need that tall of gears, the 513s, to make up for the difference in these tires. We've got 500 foot-pounds of torque and 500 horsepower over that now, but it would just be a little bit too low of gearing, which is kind of crazy to say. And aside from that, what I'm trying to think of is the actual structural integrity of those teeth in the ring and pinion, because with all this power, whenever it's putting down, it makes it really easy to shear off those smaller teeth. So with the 373 gears, those teeth are pretty large, even in a small Dana 44. But if I was to step up to 513s in that Dana 44, the teeth are going to get pretty darn small pretty quick, and I really don't know if they would stand up to the amount of force that this 6.4 puts out with the 40s. So what I think I'm going to go with is 456 gears, just because we're getting bigger teeth. You can get them from Jeep from the factory. You know they're going to be pretty good gears. And to be fair, if they're putting that in a stock vehicle, the XR package, I think that they're going to be pretty darn tough. I already know of some people that are running 40s on the 456 gears in the 6.4s, and it seems to be plenty. It's not going to be searching for gears. We may not stay in 8th all the time, but we'll definitely see 8th on the interstate highway a lot more than we do now. That 6.4 really makes up for a lot of gearing. But whenever you look at a 3.6, if I was to re-gear and I was running 40s, I probably would go with 513s. Even though they're smaller teeth in that Dana 44, I'd feel a lot safer because you've only got 270 some foot-pounds of torque. You're not running as much of a risk on shearing off those teeth simply because of the amount of power that you have. So all that comes into play whenever you're talking about tire size, what you can run, and gearing. If you're running a JK like I did in the past with stock gears on 410s, and just 38 1550s, not even talking about 40s right now, the 5-speed automatic was absolutely horrible. It's basically a 4-speed with overdrive, and it was searching for gears all the time. It was staying really high in the RPMs, and it was just constantly going up and down gears. If I was to drive that for probably 50,000 miles, we'd probably have some issues pretty quick. But 40s on those axles are safe if you build around those axles correctly with the right gearing. For the JKs, I think 513s are probably the size that you should definitely go with if you're going to be running 40s, simply because you have to make up for that transmission and the 3.6 liter. So it's two things working against you. If you're in a TJ, I really don't think that there's any solution for the stock components, even if you do re-gear it, that are going to be safe with any tire above a 37 1350. I think 37 1350 is kind of your threshold for those. But for the JLs, they really do take a beating. If you're looking at a sport JL, I believe all of them now come with a Dana 44 rear end if you are getting the 4-door. If you get the 2-door, I do believe they still offer a Dana 30, Dana 35 combo, so a 35 in the back and a 30 in the front. I don't think 40s are safe for Dana 30s really in any scenario, especially if you're going to be driving it off-road. If you're on the street, you really can get away with a lot if you're only going to be driving it on the street, but inevitably those smaller axles are still going to wear out. So to answer the question of are 40s safe on stock Jeep axles, if it's on a TJ, no. If it's on a JK with a Rubicon trim and the 3.6, yes. If you're talking about a JL Rubicon, yes. If you're talking about a JT Rubicon, yes. On all those, you're probably going to want to re-gear anyway. If you're talking about a Rubicon 392 with the 6.4, you're still going to want to re-gear. But yes, it's safe to do it. If you talk about any trim level below it, I don't believe that 40s are safe on those axles if you plan to do any wheeling at all. It's just a crazy question to ask, are 40s safe on stock axles? But I hope that gives you guys a little bit better insight into that crazy question that I actually get asked more than I care to admit. In a video coming out very soon, we're going to be testing out the off-road performance on these Yokohama Geolandar XMTs. These are awesome aggressive tires. As you can see, the Yokohama Geolandar XMT versus the Mickey Thompson Baja Boss MTs, they really do make a big difference right here. It's crazy to see how much more aggressive it is than that already aggressive tire. So stay tuned for some of the exciting adventures that are coming up with both of these machines. But if you haven't already, please like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you want to see next. But until then, Godspeed.